remember that morning like any other. It was a Thursday, I think. I'd just started a new job 2 weeks prior, maintenance guy at a local community college just outside of town. Nothing glamorous, but it paid better than stocking shelves. At the hardware store, and after getting laid off from my last job in May, I needed the stability. I'd been living alone in a small rental, a one-bedroom brick duplex on the corner of a dead-end street. Cheap place, old and drafty, but it was home for now. That morning, it was raining. Not hard, just a slow, steady drizzle that Indiana skies tend to hold on to for hours. The sort that darkens the sky just enough to make the kitchen feel dim even, with the light on. I remember staring at my coffee while the heater kicked in, with that loud metallic clang it always made, like someone had dropped a wrench into the ductwork. I'd called the landlord about it twice, but she just said the system was vintage. Anyway, I was running a little behind. My keys weren't where I usually left them, in the ceramic bowl by the front door. That was the first small thing. I figured I'd left them in my jeans or maybe dropped them in the truck. But after 15 minutes of circling the living room like a goldfish, I found them sitting on top of the microwave. I don't remember putting them there, but it wasn't the first time I'd misplaced something. The drive to work was uneventful. Fog sat low over the cornfields, and most people had their headlights on, which made traffic feel slower than usual. I listened to a true crime podcast on the way, one about a guy in Ohio who went missing on a hunting trip, and I think that may have set the tone for the rest of the day. And hindsight, at work, things felt off. I can't really explain it. The halls of the old admin building echoed weirdly, like the usual ambient noise of the place, the buzzing of fluorescents. The muffled voices behind office doors was dialed a notch. Around lunch, I noticed the janitor cart was parked by the elevator on the second floor, but no one was around. That was odd because Carl, the janitor, was almost obsessively organized. He didn't leave his cart unattended. I stood there a minute, expecting him to pop out of a bathroom or a supply room, but no one came. By the time I got back home around 5, the drizzle had turned into a cold, soaking rain. I parked in the gravel strip in front of the duplex and jogged to the front door. My porch light was off, which was strange, since I kept it on a timer. I checked a setting once I was inside, and the switch had been flipped to off. That didn't sit right. I hadn't touched it in weeks, but I told myself maybe the power had flickered during the day. I fed my cat. Midge, she's this fat gray tabby with no manners, and heated up leftover lasagna. While I ate, I noticed her staring at the hallway like she was tracking something. Cats do that, I know, but the way her ears were pinned back and her tail was twitching low made me uneasy. I even stood up and peeked down the hall, half expecting to see a bug or something. Nothing. Later, as I was brushing my teeth, I realized the towel I had used that morning, the dark blue one I always hang on the bathroom door, was gone. Not on the hook, not in the laundry. I looked everywhere. Eventually, I just grabbed another towel, but something about that nagged at me. I live alone. I didn't have anyone over, and I was certain I hadn't moved it. It wasn't just the towel or the light or the keys. It was the feeling that day, a creeping sense that something was slightly out of sync, like the air had a pressure to it, and my own house didn't quite feel like mine. At that point, I didn't think I was in danger, just that I was tired, maybe a little stressed. I told myself I'd get some sleep and everything would feel normal in the morning, but the thing is, it didn't. And what happened that night, it still makes my hands shake when I think about it. That night, the rain didn't let up. It got heavier, actually fat drops pounding the roof, turning the gutters into little rivers. I could hear it over everything. Even with the TV on, the rain was this constant rhythmic pressure behind my ears. I went to bed around 11. I remember turning off the lamp beside my couch, then checking the locks twice. Front door, side door, even the window in the kitchen. I don't usually do that. It wasn't like I was paranoid or anything, but something about the quiet between. The thunder made me double-check everything. I left the hallway light on, which again, I don't normally do. It just made the house feel a little less closed in. I was almost asleep when I heard it. Just a small noise, not loud, more like a soft knock, like someone had rapped their knuckle gently on drywall. One tap, then silence. I sat up. Midge was already on alert, perched at the foot of the bed, ears pointed toward the hallway. That was what really made me pause. She's lazy by nature, doesn't jump at small sounds. But she was stock still, focused. I got up, heart pounding, but telling myself it was probably just something shifting. The place was old, and with the rain, maybe the wood was expanding or something. But I checked the hallway, then the bathroom, then the front door. Nothing. No open windows, no drafts. When I turned back toward the bedroom, I noticed the hallway light had gone out. I stood there for a second, trying to remember if I had switched it off. I hadn't. I was sure of it. I flipped the switch. Nothing. Dead. That annoyed me more than anything, honestly. I figured the bulb had just gone out at a very inconvenient moment. I walked back to the bedroom in the dark and crawled under the covers. The next morning, I woke up and the hallway light was on again. Same bulb. No flickering, no dimming. Just on. I stood there, staring at it, trying to process. I called my friend Josh that day. He's an electrician, works commercial sites in Fort Wayne. I didn't tell him the whole story, just asked if a bulb could go out and come back on by itself. He laughed and said unless I was using LED smart bulbs or had faulty wiring. No, I wasn't. He offered to come by and check the place later in the week, which I appreciated. I even joked, just making sure I'm not going crazy, and he laughed again and said, "You probably are." That evening I noticed something else. The microwave clock was reset, just blinking 12 o'clock. I hadn't had any outages, no flickering in the other lights, and nothing else in the house was affected. Not the coffee maker, not the stove clock dot. It wasn't like a power surge. Just the microwave. I tried not to dwell on it. I cleaned the kitchen, made dinner, fed Midge. She didn't eat much. Spent most of the evening under the coffee table, eyes wide. When I tried to coax her out, she hissed. She's never done that to me. I texted my neighbor, Karen. She lives in the other half of the duplex, older woman, works nights as a home nurse. I asked if she'd had anything weird happen with her power, or if she'd noticed anything strange lately. She said no and added, "Why? You okay over there?" I lied and said I was just being paranoid. That night I left the TV on low while I slept. I didn't want silence. But around 3 a.m., I woke up again. No sounds this time. Just a feeling like someone was standing in the room. The hair on my arms was up. The room felt cold. Not cool, cold. My breath was fogging slightly. In the air, I sat up and the TV was off. Completely off. Remote was still on the nightstand, untouched. I got up, turned on the bedroom light, and stood there for a long time, trying to figure out if I was dreaming. Midge wouldn't come into the room. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Just sat there, lights on, listening to the rain. I told myself I'd give it one more day. If anything else happened, I'd get out. But I should have left then. I really should have left. I didn't go into work the next day. I called in sick and told my supervisor I might have caught something, which wasn't a total lie. I felt off. Not physically, really, but like my body was running on adrenaline and nothing else. I hadn't slept. Every noise in the house sounded sharp, amplified. Even the hum of the fridge grated on my nerves. I spent most of the day trying to convince myself that everything had an explanation. The keys, the light, the microwave, maybe I had messed up the timer without realizing it. Maybe the power flickered and only the microwave was sensitive enough to reset. Maybe the TV shut off on a timer, or I'd rolled over on the remote in my sleep. I tried to list every reason things could be normal, but even while I made that list, I kept checking over my shoulder. Around 2 p.m., I was in the kitchen pouring a second cup of coffee when I noticed something strange through the window above. The sink across the street, just past the edge of the neighbor's yard, there's this row of trees. Pretty ordinary, like a little tree line between our road and the field behind it. But something was standing just inside the trees. At first, I thought it was a person. Tall, unmoving, facing the house. I leaned closer to the window, squinting, trying to see through the glare. It looked like someone in dark clothing, maybe a hoodie. Could have been a teenager, I told myself. We got a few kids who cut through the lots sometimes. But whoever it was didn't move. Just stood there. After maybe 20 seconds, I blinked, turned to grab my phone from the counter. And when I looked back, gone. No sound, no footsteps, just empty trees. I went outside, walked halfway across the yard and stood at the curb, staring into that spot between the trunks. No one, grass wet with rain, but no footprints I could see. I must have stood there 10 minutes. Later, I tried to shake it off, told myself it was a shadow, or maybe I saw the shape of a tree, and my brain filled in the rest. That's what I wanted to believe. That evening I kept all the lights on, even in the rooms I wasn't using. I made dinner, didn't taste a bite of it, and left the TV playing loud enough to cover the quiet. I was walking down the hall toward the bathroom when I noticed something. The bedroom door was cracked open. I always leave it fully shut, habit from years of living with roommates, and I remembered shutting it earlier. I was sure of that. I pushed the door open slowly. The room looked normal at first. Then I saw it. On the bed, right in the center of the comforter, was the dark blue towel that had gone missing 2 nights earlier. Folded neatly. I didn't touch it. I stood in the doorway, staring at it for a long time, my mind racing. Had I forgotten it in a drawer? Did I fold it and just not remember? But deep down, I knew I hadn't. I backed out of the room and shut the door again. This time, I locked it from the inside and stepped out through the hallway door. Later that night, close to midnight, I was sitting on the couch with Midge curled up beside me. The storm had come back heavier than before. Thunder was rolling low in the sky, and wind rattled the windows. I'd turned off the TV to listen, thinking maybe I could finally fall asleep. I got up to check the front door one last time. It had become a routine at this point, and as I walked past the narrow window beside it, I saw someone standing. At the edge of the yard, they weren't moving, just standing there, I froze. My breath caught in my throat. By the time I pulled the curtain back for a better look, they were gone. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with the lights still on, drinking cup after cup of coffee until the sky outside started to shift from black to gray. I was wired but exhausted. That combination where your hands shake and your thoughts feel like they're being shouted at you. By 7:30, I picked up my phone and called Josh again. I hadn't planned out what I was going to say, just that I needed to talk to someone who might listen. He answered with a groggy hello, and before I could even stop myself, I said, "Man, I think someone's messing with me." I told him everything, not just the microwave and the hallway light. I told him about the towel, about the figure in the trees, the person I'd seen through the window. I didn't dramatize it. I tried to say it exactly how it happened. There was a long pause after I finished. Then he let out this short laugh and said, "Dude, you've been watching too much of that true crime stuff." I forced a chuckle, tried to brush it off, but it stung more than I expected. "No, seriously," I said. "I'm not making this up. I haven't been sleeping. Weird stuff keeps happening. My cat won't even go near the hallway." "Cats are weird, man," he said. "Mine stares at the fridge for hours. Doesn't mean there's a ghost in it." I could hear him starting his coffee machine in the background. He wasn't taking me seriously. I thanked him for listening and hung up. Later that afternoon, I called the Wabash Police Department's non-emergency line. I didn't know what I was going to report exactly, but I needed to know if someone had been seen around the neighborhood. Maybe it really was just a trespasser, someone trying to mess with me. The woman on the phone was polite, but distant. I explained that I'd seen someone in the yard more than once, and she asked if I had any proof. "No," I said. "But it wasn't just once. They don't stay long, but it's happened multiple times." "Any damage to your property?" "No." "Any attempt to break in?" "No, but things have moved inside the house." That's when her tone shifted. Slightly, I could almost feel the skepticism. Could it be a roommate, family member? "I live alone." "Well, sir, unless there's an immediate threat or property damage, there's not much we can do. We'll send a patrol by your street tonight to keep an eye out." I knew from her voice that it wasn't a priority. I thanked her and hung up, feeling worse than before I called. Even Karen, my neighbor, didn't believe me. I saw her later in the driveway as she was coming home from her shift. I tried to be casual, asked if she'd noticed anything weird lately. People walking around, lights going off, anything. She gave me this tired smile and said, "You've been watching those scary documentaries again, haven't you?" "No," I said. "I really think someone's been around here, outside the house, maybe even in it." She raised an eyebrow, then glanced toward my windows. "You sure you're not just stressed?" I didn't answer that night. I didn't bother calling anyone else. Nobody believed me. Not really. And honestly, maybe I wouldn't have believed me either if I were in their shoes. But knowing that didn't make it any easier. I was alone. I could feel it. And whatever was happening, whatever was watching or waiting, knew it too. That night something changed. The air felt heavier somehow, thicker, like I was breathing through damp cotton. I kept pacing the house, checking the windows, peeking through the blinds every few minutes, like I was expecting to see someone standing there. Again, I had every light on, even in the closets. I'd pulled out the flashlight I kept under the sink and set it on the kitchen counter just in case. Around 10, I locked both doors again and pushed the armchair in front of the back one. I knew it wouldn't stop anyone, but I needed to feel like I was doing something. Midge was hiding under the bed. She hadn't come out all day, not even to eat. Every time I peeked in, her eyes were wide, unblinking. Her ears never moved. It started with the bathroom light. I was standing in the hallway when it flickered, just once, then again. I moved toward it, and before I could reach the switch, the bulb buzzed loudly and went out with a soft pop. I flinched. Then the bedroom light went out. Then the kitchen. It happened, in sequence, like someone was flipping them off one by one. I froze in the hallway, heart pounding in my throat. I backed up slowly, pulling my phone from my pocket, but the screen wouldn't turn on. It had been at 60% an hour ago. Now nothing. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen. It turned on, a narrow beam that barely cut through the thick dark. That's when I heard the first N-O-I-C-A knock. Not at the door. On the wall, 3 slow knocks. I turned in a circle, shining the light around. Nothing. Then another knock, this time behind me. I spun. Still nothing. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to listen. I could hear my own breath, my pulse, and something else. Footsteps. Not heavy, not like boots or shoes. Soft, deliberate, coming from the bedroom. I raised the flashlight and crept forward. I wanted to leave, but every part of my body felt frozen. The bedroom door was cracked again. It had been locked. I pushed it open with the flashlight in one hand, holding my breath. The light swung across the room. Empty. But on the mirror above the dresser, something had been written. It looked like a fingertip had dragged through the fog, but the room was cold. No reason for there to be any condensation. It said one word: stay. Why? My chest tightened. I backed out of the room, slammed the door, and ran for the front door. The chain was still latched, the lock still in place. I yanked it open and stepped out into the rain, barefoot, still holding the flashlight. The street was empty, not a single car, not even wind now, just the sound of water pouring from gutters and dripping off the trees. I stood on the porch, soaked, shaking, trying to decide where to go. Then I saw movement in the reflection of the window behind me. I turned. Nothing. But I knew someone had been there. Inside. I went back in slowly, every step feeling like it might be the last. I locked the door again, pulled the armchair back in front of it, and crouched in the living room, flashlight in one hand, a kitchen knife in the other. I stayed like that until morning. The lights never came back on. My phone stayed dead. And in the silence, sometime just before dawn, I heard the front door creak. Not open, just creak, like it was testing me, like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. By the time the sun finally came up, I was still crouched on the floor, back against the cold wall between the living room and kitchen. My hands were stiff from gripping the flashlight and knife for so long. I remember standing up slowly, legs shaking, feeling like I'd been holding my breath for hours. The lights flickered back on around 6:15, not all at once. First the hallway light buzzed to life, then the kitchen, then the bedroom. As if whatever had turned them off was letting go now that daylight had returned. I didn't move for a long time. I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the coffee pot as it hummed softly, like the house was pretending everything was fine. I packed a bag and left. Just enough clothes for a few days, my charger, Midge in her carrier. I didn't even lock the door. I couldn't bring myself to turn around. I drove straight to Josh's place in Fort Wayne. He wasn't home, but I had a spare key from when I helped him move last year. I let myself in, fed the cat, then collapsed on his couch. I don't even remember falling asleep. He came home later that night, found me with every light on and a baseball bat by the door. I must have looked insane. But after I told him what happened, really told him, from start to finish, he stopped making jokes. He didn't say much, just listened, nodded, asked a few quiet questions. He let me stay as long as I needed. The next couple of days were calm. I tried to relax, tried to act like a guest and not someone hiding from their own life. We watched movies. I helped him fix a broken cabinet. Midge even started coming out from under the bed again. For a while, I convinced myself it was over. Maybe something about the house, something in my head, maybe both. Whatever it was, I'd left it behind. But on the third night, I woke up around 3 a.m. Josh's apartment was quiet. No creaks, no hum of traffic outside, just silence. Then I heard it. The soft scrape of something dragging against wood. It was faint, coming from the other side of the apartment, near the hallway that led to the bathroom. I sat up, barely breathing. Midge was already awake, crouched at the edge of the bed, ears flattened, eyes wide. I got up and stepped into the hall. The lights were off, but the faint glow from the street lamp outside gave just enough light to see 3 long, thin scratches running down the hallway wall. Fresh. I didn't touch them. I just turned around, walked back into the guest room and closed the door behind me. As gently as I could. It followed me. Whatever it was, it didn't care where I went. And I don't think it's done yet. I stayed at Josh's for another week after that. I didn't sleep much. Neither did he. He tried to act like everything was fine, kept things light, cracked dumb jokes, asked me if I wanted to hit the bar or watch a game, but the energy in the apartment had changed. We both felt it. Every now and then I'd catch him glancing at that scratched hallway wall. He never said anything about it. I didn't either. One night I woke up and he was sitting in the living room, lights on, holding the bat I'd brought. He just looked at me and said, "You weren't dreaming, were you?" I shook my head. 2 days later I packed up and left. I didn't say where I was going, just told Josh I needed to figure things out, maybe stay with my cousin upstate for a while. That was a lie. I didn't go to my cousin's. I didn't go anywhere familiar. I drove west, took back roads, stayed in small motels, places where no one asked questions. I changed my phone number, deleted every account I had. I thought if I kept moving, maybe whatever this thing was, whatever followed me out of that house in Wabash, would lose interest. I thought maybe it needed something specific, a place, a pattern, a routine. But about a month ago, I was staying in a roadside motel in Missouri, the kind with cracked tiles and buzzing neon. It was almost midnight when I heard a knock on the door. 3 soft taps. I didn't answer, didn't breathe, just stared at the door from across the room, frozen in place. A few minutes later, the light above the bathroom mirror flickered once. Then the vent started clicking. Then silence. The next morning, I found a towel folded perfectly on the foot of the bed, one of mine, dark blue. That was 2 towns ago. Now I don't stay in one place more than a night. I sleep during the day, drive at night. I don't talk to people. I don't make eye contact. It's not gone. It doesn't stop. It doesn't want anything. Not really. I think it just enjoys being near, watching, testing, waiting. I don't know what it is. I don't think I ever will, Dot. I only know this. Wherever I go, whatever I do, it finds me, Dot, and every time I think I might finally outrun it, something small happens. A missing item. A flickering bulb. A cold spot in the air, Dot. It's never over. I got this story from someone named Matt C. about 8 months ago. He said it happened in his hometown, and he sent the last part from a burner email. I tried following up, but it bounced back. No one's heard from him since. I still have the email saved, the last one Matt ever sent. There was no subject line, just a short message, maybe 5 or 6 lines. He said he'd been sleeping in his car for the past few nights, parked behind a 24-hour laundromat outside Amarillo. He said he hadn't seen it for a couple of days, but he could feel it again. Like the air around him was starting to thicken the way it always did before something happened. He mentioned hearing whispers just as he was falling asleep. Not words exactly, more like the sound of someone trying to breathe through their teeth, slow and steady, like it was inches from his ear. He wrote that he'd woken up with his car door unlocked 3 mornings in a row, even though he always checked it. Even though he always heard the click when he locked it. In the last line of his message, he said, "If I stop sending these, it means I either lost it, or it finally got close enough. That was it. No sign off. No, take care, or thanks for listening." Just that sentence. I replied immediately, asked if he was okay, told him to let me know where he was so I could maybe send someone to check in on him. I checked every hour for a response. It never came. 3 days later, when I tried again, the email bounced. Account no longer exists. I thought maybe he deleted it himself, maybe just gave up or wanted to disappear completely. That would make sense, but then again, he'd sent that message at 3:12 a.m. and attached to the bottom, maybe by mistake, maybe not, was a photo. A grainy, low-light shot taken from the inside of a car. It showed the rearview mirror, and behind it, in the back seat, was the faint outline of someone sitting very still. After he sent this email, I replied asking if he was okay. He never answered. The email bounced a few days later.